So before we get into our first function, let's just get comfortable with the information that we have in front of us. So the file that we have open is the computer help button, more functions.xlsx. So we've got that file open. On this tab here, these are going to be where we'll practice the logical functions. So that was if, and or. And then on the next tab, we've got the text tab. So we'll work on our text types of functions here. For our test scores, we're going to work on the VLOOKUP function, and then we'll practice VLOOKUP as well with the employee information. We'll use this department information as part of our VLOOKUP. And then the conditional tab, we've got the 6 different conditional functions that we're going to be working on. So that's what our file looks like. We're going to hang out here on the logical worksheet tab first. And what I want to do is just kind of practice with you different ways that you can access these functions. So what I'm going to do is just take a look at column H here. We've got the sum function already in here. I'm just going to wipe out this column for right now. Now we already know from the intro class on working through our formulas and our functions that if I wanted to add together this row of numbers, I would use the auto sum button, and then Excel will magically put in the correct function. In this case, it starts with an equal sign. You get the special code of sum, SUM, and then in parentheses, it tells you the first cell through, we've got a colon there for through, the last cell. And then that's the syntax of how the sum function would work. And all we would need to do is just press our enter key to accept that, and that would give us the correct answer. Now there are other ways that you can get into the sum function, so I just want to talk to you about how you can get there because that's where we're going to get all of our new functions that we work on today. And so I'm just in the next cell where I want to add together these numbers, and of course we know the shortest way to do the auto sum or to sum is to use this auto sum button. That is the shortest way, but there are other functions that we can use. So when I use the drop down arrow right next to auto sum, it shows us the other popular functions like average we learned in that other class, the count function, max, and min. So these are the popular ones that we've already worked on together. We are going to now work on more functions. Okay, so at the bottom of the list, when you pick more functions, then Excel will give you this insert function dialog box. Okay, and I'll talk about the different things that you can do here. So first of all, the category it's on right now is the most recently used. So these are some of the recent functions that I've been using in some of our other courses. Looks like some happens to be on that list. But you could also use this little drop down arrow to look at other types of categories. So for instance, lookup and reference. When we go there, that's where we're going to find in here alphabetically, there is the VLOOKUP function that we'll work on later. You can change into other categories like the text category and find different kinds of text functions. And just as an example, one of the first ones we're going to work on is the trim function. And when you look down here, when you pick your different functions, it will tell you how it's going to work. So trim is the name of the function, TRIM, and then in parentheses, it'll tell you what Excel is going to be looking for to put inside that parentheses. And then it also will give you this nice description, removes all spaces from a text string except for single spaces between words. So you still get your normal one space in there. So you're able to just, learn about these different types of functions in here. And I'll just go ahead and scroll through, find another one here. How about upper? So upper is just going to return your text and make it all uppercase letters. Okay, so that's what that is. So that's the idea of using this dialog box. So we have different categories that you can go straight to if you know that category. Otherwise, you could go to all and you will see all of the available types of functions that are here. And again, there are well over 450 different kinds of functions. They're really just pre-built formulas in here that you can use. And then once you pick your function, the next dialog box, it'll ask you questions about what we're going to be putting in the middle inside of the parentheses. And in each portion of that parentheses, it just depends on the function as to what it is that you need. So lots of choices. Now, another thing that you could do is you can look in this search for a function box. Okay, so Excel gives you some text in there, and you'll actually have to delete it. So if I were in there and I start typing, notice it actually just puts it in there. So I just highlight the whole thing and then delete on the keyboard and just type in the function that I'm looking for. So let's just practice this with a function we already know about. Let's use the sum function. So SUM, and I'm just going to press my enter key on that because that'll use the go button. Notice that's how it's kind of got a darker border around it compared to the other buttons. So I could either press enter or I could push go. Either way is fine. And Excel will look for functions that have sum in it, and it gives you some suggestions. And so this is the right one. This is the sum function. And there it is, SUM, and then in parentheses, it'll ask you for different numbers. And in our description, it says it's going to add all the numbers in a range of cells. So this is what I want. So I'm going to do OK. And then what are the numbers that you want to add together? And so I'm just going to leave that highlighted and kind of override it just in case it is not the right cells, but you can get outside the dialog box and highlight the cells that you want there. Now, if I had another group of numbers that I wanted to add, let's say I want to also include these numbers down here, I could highlight that in this case. You know, this is not what I need in this place, but just know that that's an option. And as you, add multiple numbers, if they're not, next to each other, this is a good way to do it. Each of these boxes is going to kind of open. Okay, so this is all I really need inside of the parentheses. You'll notice up here, in this second dialog box, it says arguments. So these are the pieces within the parentheses that we're going to be putting in. And it's basically, Excel's going to call these arguments. Really, it's just Excel interviewing us and saying, hey, what do you want inside the parentheses? Which numbers is it that you want? And if you're not sure what Excel's asking for, you can read it down here. So for sum, it adds all the numbers in a range of cells. So that's the name of the function. And then for number one, what Excel needs right here, number one, number two, so 1 to 255 numbers to sum. So you can go all the way to 255 different groupings of numbers, and basically it's just going to add those together. So some things that you look for as you're working on this, you look over here, make sure there's no odd error messages. We can see the actual answer is right here, and then when it is formatted, this is the true answer is what is going to come out. Okay, so let me just do OK, and then it spits it out. So let me practice that again. So you put your cursor in the cell where you want the answer to go. You can use the drop-down box to look for any of the new functions that we're working on. And then there's our sum function. Since we've recently used it, I'm going to choose OK. And then it is grabbing the correct numbers. You can always just triple check. Actually, I take that back. It is not grabbing the correct numbers. Let me just highlight it here. All right, so we re-highlight it to the correct numbers, and I just check no error message. There's my answer. There's the formatted answer. I'll just say OK, and there it is. Okay, now there are other ways that you can get into your functions as well. So just practicing in this cell, we can go over to this button right here, insert function, so FX. And this is my favorite way of doing it, so I'm going to do it this way, but feel free to do it any of the three ways I'm going to show you. So we've got insert function here, and it gives me the same dialog box. Okay, so we know how to use it already, so I'm just going to grab sum again, and then it gives us the same second dialog box, and I'm just going to go ahead and highlight the cells that I want so that the arguments are set within the parentheses, and then I'll choose OK. All right, and then a third way of using your functions is you can go to the Formulas tab on your ribbon, and you have this beautiful function library, and you also have an insert function button too. Notice how that FX button matches here. So if I went here, it just brings me to the same location that we've been going. We can also use the bottom half of the auto sum button. There's the more functions there. So you could go there. Now remember, when you're using this, you can pick different categories. So when I use this drop down box, I have all of these different categories, and they're also up here. So remember how we were looking at lookup and reference? It's there. There's that category. When we were peeking at some of the text functions, that one is there. Logical is where we're going to find that if function and or. So those are, these are the same different categories over here. So if I know that I would like a lookup function, I could grab it from here and I should be able to find it in the list. So these are all the different types of lookup types of functions, and VLOOKUP is the one that we're working on today. So I could do that. If I'm going to use a text function, I can go straight to that category and I could look around for those. So we talked about trim, we talked about upper as a couple of the functions we're working when we're doing text. Logical is where you could find if and. We're going to go over to financial. So financial is where we'll find the category for sum. So just look in here for sum. And it looks like it's on here. You can tell that is not the category I usually go under. I would have thought it would have been under sum. Probably math. Let's try that one. That's the difficult thing too. You know, picking it this way, you really have to know your functions, know what category it is in. That might be why I actually avoid using it this way. I really like this shortcut button for me. But if you get comfortable with it, the nice thing about using it this way is I'm picking some from the list, and now it gets me straight to the second dialog box. Okay, so you kind of get to skip a step basically that way too. So I'm just going to highlight that and choose OK. All right, so again, the three different ways that you can get in your own functions. You can use the drop-down box next to auto sum and go to more functions. Okay, so you feel free to use that, or use the little FX to get into your functions there. Or the third way was to go under the formulas tab and get to know some of the categories if you wish to do it that way, and click on it, and then you'll be able to use the functions that way. So completely up to you from this point forward how you want to do that during the class. For me, I'm just going to tap this button and work through it that way. So I'm just going to have you right now just get real comfortable with using the three techniques and kind of figure out which one you feel most comfortable with and stick with that one for the class. And then I'll meet you back here in a moment. We're going to work on the if function right here in I6. So see you in a moment.